Hey, I figured I'd just pop up and talk to you about Lupe Fiasco's new album, Tetsuo and Youth. So I've been listening to this album pretty much nonstop for the last week, and I'm blown away by it. So what I have to share with you is 5 life lessons learned from Tetsuo and Youth. Number 1, everything has hidden meanings. Lupe intricately crafts his lyrics, so every line has multiple meanings, multiple layers, and every word has significance. There's wordplay and punchlines hidden everywhere, and everything has those multi-layers, and there's a deeper meaning in everything. So he's really fun to decipher that in that sense. So one example of this is a line that he says from Body of Work. He goes, "God is great, but it snakes on my soul plane," which is, of course, a biblical reference, for one. It also references 2 movies, Snakes on a Plane and Soul Plane. And it also references the theory of fourth dimensional reptilian entities inhabiting the astral plane. Snakes on my soul plane, soul being astral plane. So it's just crazy. And he's got a lot of lines that are on that level. Triple entendres, quadruple entendres. The lyrics are so intricate, but they sound good too. So it's both pleasing to the ear and you can dissect it for years. Number 2, life is defined by youth or lack thereof. So he has 4 skits in the album, which are according to the 4 seasons, and it's basically classical music accompanied by children playing and sounds of youth. And in the winter one, it's more foreboding, and there are no children playing. So they all give different vibes. And throughout a lot of the songs, he talks about youth and the loss of innocence and maintaining innocence and childhood and all of that kind of stuff. So it's crucial to life to maintain that youthful exuberance. And something that I always say is that enlightenment is merging the childlike spirit with the wisdom of experience. So it's really good to maintain that youthful essence that we all have throughout life. And I feel like Lupe stresses that in the album. And number 3 is that you can apply religious philosophies without necessarily being confined by them. So this album has tons of religious references, but Lupe is never preachy and he never completely advocates one religion. So he's pulling that old Bruce Lee quote, absorbing what's useful, rejecting what's not, and adding what's uniquely his own. So he's able to give all those references without being confined by the downfalls of religion. Choosing the love and discarding the fear, not being confined by all the labels and the boxes. And number 4, out of the life lessons from Tetsuo and Youth, is that life is like a video game. So there are so many video game references on the album, and the theme of reincarnation pervades the album as well. And the last song on the album is Tron, Tron. They resurrect over new. And it's about reincarnation and video games. So basically, Lupe is saying that you're reincarnating into a video game, comparing life to a video game. And that's a very interesting concept, because a lot of the quantum physicists these days are saying that chances are we live in a simulation, and there's a lot of evidence pointing to reality actually being a hologram. So it might be true that we're in a video game of sorts. And with that mentality of life being like a video game, it makes it more fun. And video games are supposed to be challenging. So Lupe discusses a lot of struggle in the album too, and both falling victim to struggle as well as overcoming it, because video games are only fun when they're challenging. Like, you're not going to play Super Mario Brothers if you just walk to the right the whole time without encountering any obstacles. So we only grow through achieving in spite of obstacles. So I really think that that concept is so interesting. And number 5 is that there really is no beginning and no end. And like, you could listen to the album from front to back, but it also works as an album listening from the last track to the first track. So going in reverse, it also plays out well at the same time. So that makes it really interesting. And Lupe constantly gives hints of that. He's got a lot of references in songs that say, like, the end is my beginning, or the end is the beginning, and things like that. And the last song that I mentioned before, Tron, it's about reincarnation. So the last song is actually hinting at something new. So if you start with that song, it's like you're entering the world, and then you go back. And the first full song is Mural, which is the 8 minutes and something long epic of a lyrical journey. And the end of that song is interesting, because the very last line, he says, defeat samsara, achieve nirvana and brilliance. So samsara is that endless cycle of reincarnation, and achieving nirvana is transcending that. So it kind of works that way. The first song, you reincarnate into the world, and then the last moment you achieve nirvana. So it's really interesting, and Lupe really plays with that concept of there really being no beginning and no end, with all of the reincarnation and all of that mystery that he puts in there. And that's really interesting, because recently I've been philosophizing about that kind of concept, and I came across something by Alan Watts where he said that kind of the same thing. There is no beginning and no end. There is no cause and effect, and there is no division between events. And the example that he used was, how do you define, where is the boundary of your life? Where did it begin? Did it begin when you came out of the womb? Did it begin when the sperm and the egg met? Did it begin in your father's testicles? Did it begin with your grandfather? Like, there really is no clear boundary. It's crazy to think of that. And like, the boundaries that we place on our lives, the lines that separate our lives, are kind of just arbitrary and man-made, in the same way we put imaginary lines over land to define the borders of countries. So that's the same concept. And Lupe really plays around with that concept of there being no beginning and no end. So that's really interesting. And before I'm done with this, I'll share what I think is my favorite line from the whole album. It's a series of lines from the song Adoration of the Magi. So this is what he says in it. Quiet is kept like Rosicrucians meet Costa Nostras on Oprah's sofa, with both controllers watching Gazans and Ashkenazis ride roller coasters. Say yeah. Lots of options now, up is down, 2-player. Now A is jump and B is punch. You see in something that wasn't there. To find friendliness in a nemesis, it's an old test. 3 buttons, see something. That's emphasis on Genesis. So that is deep, and every line is just loaded with hidden meanings and wordplay. So that first line, quiet is kept like Rosicrucians meet Costa Nostras on Oprah's sofa, that's referring to secret societies hiding in plain sight. And it just sounds awesome too. And then saying with both controllers, he's referring to secret societies who are operating behind the scenes acting as controllers to manipulate conflicts. And this opens up his video game reference, which compares life to a video game. And then watching Gazans and Ashkenazis ride roller coasters, he's referring to the Israel-Palestine conflict. And riding roller coasters, I think he could be referring to Bill Hicks's stand-up routine, where he talks about life being a roller coaster, how it's just a ride. And then he says, now up is down. So that's referring to inversion, because everything is inverted in today's society. And now up is down is also with the video game reference. And with the inversion, it reminds me of the Michael Elner quote, just look at us, everything is backwards. Everything is upside down. Doctors destroy health. Lawyers destroy justice. Psychiatrists destroy minds. Scientists destroy truth. Major media destroys information. Religions destroy spirituality. And governments destroy freedom. And then Lupe says two-player. So that's a reference to the concept of duality. And also keeps the video game theme going on. And then he says, now A is jump and B is punch. So keeping with the video game references, obviously. And then he's discussing playing Sega Genesis, the game Double Dragon. And maybe that's a reference to David Icke's reptilian theory, something like that. And then he says, you're seeing something that wasn't there. So that's the world of illusion. And the next line, to find friendliness in a nemesis, it's an old test. So Old Test, that's like Old Testament. So he's doing a little wordplay with the biblical references. And he's saying that people allow themselves to be divided because of the Old Testament when we should all unite as one. And Old Test could also be referring to life as a test. Back to the video game. And then he says, 3 buttons, see something. So that's referring to using all 3 eyes. The third eye as well as the 2 physical eyes. So that's to gain a higher perspective using your third eye and transcend all of the meaningless conflict. And this, of course, continues the video game theme again. And then the last part, that's emphasis on Genesis. So that nicely wraps up both the religious and the video game references. And it's also a call for a new beginning. So it's just crazy. It's really a joy to listen to, and especially since I love language and I love wordplay and rhyme schemes so much, it's just an adventure for me. So I love deciphering everything and just breaking it down. So that's all I have for today. See you on the other side. Peace.